Your turn then, yeah. Thank you.
All right. So, hi, my name is Daniel Lehenbauer, and I'm here to talk with you about the EconoPET. Uh, this is a project that started when my son was 8 and asked me if we could build our own computer. And after some research, I decided that the Commodore PET was, the simplest architecture that could still run programs that would be, interesting, mostly games. And so that's what we decided on. And so it started as just a 6502 on a breadboard. And my son is now 13. The project's evolved a lot since then, and so this is what it looks like now. It's no longer on a breadboard; it's a PCB, and it fits inside of a Commodore PET or CBM series machine, and it can be used to repair one if the main board's broken, or it can be an upgrade since it or not emulates it. It can function like the most the latest models of the PET, including the CRTC chip and the 64K expansion that Commodore made for the 8096, which gives you 96K in total. And so it's roughly equivalent to the Commodore Dynamic PET V2 board if that means anything to you. So with that introduction, I'm going to move on to the demo. And so behind me, I have a CBM 8032. It was one of the later PETs made. It's got a 12-inch monitor, the business style keyboard, and it's 80 columns. And so in my part of the world, PETs are hard to come by. This seems to be the most common in my area, and so this is what I have. But unfortunately, while I love this machine, it's also one of the least compatible software-wise. And so I'm just going to show you a couple of the problems we have. So here I am running Space Invaders. And as you'll see in a minute, this was actually designed for a 40 column PET. And so you can see the screen is wrapping around. You get 2 rows per row. And then this is also one of many games that peaks the keyboard matrix directly. And since Commodore changed the keyboard matrix between the normal style PETs and the business style, I can use, I think, tab to shoot, delete to move left or right, and then there's no key to move in the opposite direction because it just doesn't map to anything if you have a business keyboard. Uh, and so this is a machine that is clearly in the market for one of our EconoPET boards, so we're going to install one. So turn it off. We'll open it up. The PETs are a lot of fun to work on because they have this nice clamshell case on a piano hinge. And first, I'm unplugging the power. Don't forget that. And any other accessories in the back. And while we're talking about power, I'm sure everyone knows this, but I'll just mention it. This whole axis is the monitor. The CRT can retain a deadly high voltage charge even when the machine is unplugged. And so don't put fingers in this hole here. So anyways, back to our installation. There's 3 cables to remove. There's the video, keyboard, power, and then normally you'd have to unscrew the board, but I've already done that. But there are some plastic retention clips. There you go. And with that, the board comes out. It's pretty sizable. And I guess another tip when handling these, you should be taking precautions against static electricity. And so I'm definitely wearing a grounded strap that you can't see off camera. All right. And then here is our EconoPET. So it uses the same 2 back screws that were used on the original board, then 2 nylon standoffs because the board is too short to reach any of the rest of the screws that are on the case. And I apologize for what I'm sure is a flattering camera angle while I put this in, but don't worry, it'll be worth it. All right, let me reconnect our cables. So video and the keyboard cables are keyed. you can't put them in the wrong way. There's a missing pin and then one of the holes is plugged. And the same is true for power on the later PETs. If you have the 9-pin power model, which I think is the most common. There was also a 5-pin version, which isn't keyed. Instead, it's symmetrical. You can plug it in either way. Just make sure you use the 5 pins here on the right if you have one of those. And we'll plug it back in. And cross fingers, turn it on. All right, that was an encouraging sound. All right, so now I have a real 40 column PET. We'll go back to that Space Invaders program we were trying to play before. And while we have our 40 column display like we were hoping for, we still have a problem with the keyboard. And unfortunately, the EconoPET mainboard can't rewire the keyboard matrix. But we do have a workaround. So this is a USB keyboard. And on the side of the EconoPET, accessible through the expansion port here on the right, is a USB-C connector. And so I'm going to plug this keyboard in. And the way this works is this keyboard can be either the business keyboard layout or the graphics keyboard. You control that with a num lock. And so when the light is lit, it'll behave like a graphics keyboard. And so I'll finally get to be able to play that game of Space Invaders. I can move left and right. Everything's working properly. And so we're good. Another feature of this keyboard is that the scroll lock key will toggle between symbolic and positional. When it's using a symbolic layout, the keys basically behave like they're labeled. It tries to map a modern keyboard to the PET keyboard matrix as best as possible so you can type naturally. And then positional tries to map it by position. So they do the closest approximation of position on the keyboard to key here in case you have some software where it's important that the keys are in the right place. These layouts, I followed what Vice did with the Vice emulator. It has the same set of features that you can configure. So another modern convenience of the EconoPET is that there's a HDMI port. So if I take this HDMI cable, and unfortunately the connector was a little too tall to fit through the expansion slot, so I've got to open it, but I feed the cable through the expansion slot and then plug it here into the connector on the bottom. And we turn this on, we'll see that we don't have just native PET video, but we also have, you're able to use modern displays like this one over here. And if you wanted to, you could take your EconoPET board, connect USB, HDMI, and just a regular 9-volt power pack, wall adapter, and you can use the board standalone. You don't actually have to have a PET to use it. Although I think probably most people will be using these to repair or upgrade their PETs. So another feature is that there's a push button on the side, which is accessible to the side. And so if I reach over here and push it once, or I should say push it briefly, tap it. It works like a reset, so you don't have to power down and power on your machine like you did with the original. And if you hold it, it'll take you to this power on menu. And the power on menu is listing various models of PET that you can configure the board to behave like. And so we have, the 4000 series and 50 and 60 hertz variants, the 8000 series, which are the 80 column ones with 50 and 60 hertz variants. The PET 2001 with upgraded ROMs, or the PET 2001, which is going back to 1977, had the original ROM set with all of their func-works. And so just to show an example, I'll pick an 80 column PET. So now we're back in 80 columns. And so if you have a 40 column or an 80 column PET and would like to use all the software, an EconoPET board is an option. And probably the best app for the 80 column PET that I've found so far is the Infocom interpreter. It's a lot of fun to play Zork in 80 columns, especially with the 96K expansion, because then your entire disk gets cached into memory. And so it's very quick and responsive. And then, whoops, since I mentioned it, just for fun, we'll do the 2001 upgraded ROMs so we can quickly see the famous Microsoft Easter egg. And so there it is. You type wait 6502, comma 40, and it prints Microsoft 40 times. And so I think we've covered most of the main features. There's also an audio jack on the side for if you want to use amplified speakers instead of the little built-in piezo speaker. A lot of expansion ports that I can answer questions about if people are interested. Most of these were things that I broke out during the design of the board for attaching logic analyzers, but then decided to clean them up and keep them because they could be useful in the future. Exposing all the address data lines, control signals, and so on. I've got one last thing for you, which is on the side of the board, there's a micro SD slot. And what's on this micro SD card is a YAML configuration file, which when the machine powers on, it reads from that the list of different models, what ROMs to load for them, how to configure the hardware, is it 40, 80 columns, and so on. It also has a folder with all the ROM files. And so if you wanted to play Attack of the Petsky Robots using David Murray's custom pet ROM that changes the character graphics, you could do that. You can have the I don't want to say bitmap graphics, but a different appearance, I guess. Um, and the other thing that's on there is the firmware for the machine. And so recently we had a U.S. holiday, and so I had a 4-day weekend to do some hacking. And so I'm taking out the SD card, which has the released firmware that's currently on the site, and I'm putting in another SD card, which has my 4-day weekend project. And I'm going to reset it really quickly in here. And you won't be able to see it, but there's an LED that's blinking really rapidly to let me know the firmware is resetting or reflashing. And when that finishes, we'll come up and we've got a new option called surprise. So I don't know if you see anything different yet, but you will in a minute. So a pet with color. So this is a modification which was done by Stephen Gray. So Steve Gray's ColorPET is a really cool cover project. I don't want to steal his thunder and describe it to you, but over a 4-day weekend, I had a chance to implement it. One other one that you might be interested in is I have an experimental SID chip implemented on the FPGA available at address 8F00. I guess there was at one time like a PET SID card. The Vice emulator emulates it. I only know of one piece of software which uses it, which is the new Pets Allowed demo, which also uses a lot of really complicated CRTC tricks. And it turns out that was the first piece of software my son wanted to run when we got this thing, got the EconoPET first working. And so a lot of my first early year was, was spent trying to implement all these crazy features in order to be able to run that one demo. So I guess, yeah, the last thing I want to talk about quickly is, how you get one. And so I'll tell you how I do it. Um, so this is what the EconoPET looks like when it comes from JLC PCB. They're a manufacturer in China. You go to their website, you upload a set of manufacturing files, and this is what they send you back in the mail. So it's a PCB, and you can see all of the surface mount components are already installed by their pick and place robots, which is it's really cool. Um, the through-hole components are unpopulated, and so you then go and order a set of parts from Mouser. You can get them from different distributors, but Mouser distributes the Western Design Center chips that Frank was talking about earlier. They're still manufacturing the 6502 and so on. So as you get those and you do the through-hole soldering, and that's what you end up after the board's fully populated. A lot of these components are not components, but headers are optional and don't yet currently have a use. They're for future expansion. It'd be easy to add them later if you want to skip them for now. So that's what I do. This was a project where, um, you know, I was hoping this would work is that there, well, there's low demand for it. I could build, maybe one a month and sell it for the cost of parts to, people who need to repair a pet or just interested. Um, since, it turns out I finished this about just in time for the United States to get into a trade war with China and institute a bunch of tariffs. It's now no longer such an economical pet if I'm the one who builds them. And so I was just going to offer if there's anyone outside the US who wanted to assemble these for others, I'd be happy to consult and walk you through the process. Um, I guess if people really want me to, I'd also be willing to do a batch, but I'd feel bad passing on the cost of the tariffs to others. So, anyways, that's the EconoPET project. That's where it currently is. Happy to answer questions if there are any, or I can give the time back. Uh, thank you for having me.
Well, great. Many thanks to you, Daniel.
Hmm.
Um, Maybe I start with one question because few years ago you came here to present the homebrew pet, and I guess this one is an evolution of this homebrew pet. Did you
Uh-huh.
document that somewhere? Like, do you have like versioning of so that if someone is interested in going into the whole process of the evolution, is that documented somewhere, or is it just like on the side there?
um, so it's everything's been checked into GitHub, and so if you wanted to, you could go through GitHub history. It turns out that when I presented to you last time, I was like, oh, I need to make this stuff public, and so I created one GitHub project, which is all the way up to exactly where I presented to you. Then there's a new one called the EconoPET that starts from there and then continues on, and so you do have those 2 points in time. But
So it's really the
um,
evolution of what you had presented last time. So it's
yeah, that's right.
okay. Okay. There is a question in the chat, but I think you answer it from Inbar. Is this only open source, build your own, or also purchasable? I think you explained how and where to have it built. Inbar, if that doesn't fully answer your question, don't hesitate to just unmute and follow up. Um, the other question I have is about the keyboard, because the keyboard that you show there, is that one that you purchased as such or that you built yourself? Because if I understood correctly, you can just pick one key and then you activate the graphics, also the PET key or something like that? Or?
Oh, yeah. So, um, yeah, this is a purchased keyboard. There's nothing special about it. Uh, the the thing where we're talking about toggling the between graphics and business, it doesn't change anything when you're using this keyboard. Actually, maybe the best way to do is show you. So if I type ASDF like this, it types ASDF here because it matches. These are both expecting. I think it's business right now. And so if I toggle the graphics and I type ASDF, you'll see I'm starting to get weird garbage and the cursor's moving around. Um, that's because when I'm pressing a key here, it's getting translated to the other PET keyboard matrix and being sent.
Okay, okay. So you can switch to the type of mapping of the keys between one
Mm-hmm.
and okay.
I have
Thank
a
you for that.
small questions regards the orders. So could you tell me what is kind of the cost of producing one board? I do believe, just like at the lower kinds of how you can get like ISA 5 in a JL
Uh,
PCB. I do believe, yeah. So what is the cost? Just I'm trying to see how much, just
uh,
like the additional, just like a tax we have to pay now.
yeah. Uh, So I did an order right before tariffs went into effect of 5 boards, and the Amortos cost at that time was $130 for just the parts. Everything fluctuates. It could be 145 one day, and you never know what it's going to be, but around there. Um, I don't know what it would be of tariffs. Like I've heard, it'll add like 70% to the JLCB PCB order or 100%. This is based on people in the Reddit channel. Was it printed circuit boards where they're discussing the costs. It turns out it seems like it's still the cheapest option to have something done in low volume with SMT. But yeah, that's kind of what I'm expecting. I'm expecting something around a 70% increase in cost with tariffs.
So okay, I ordered actually, it was like I was surprised it was 20%. Up,
Okay, yeah.
just like for the small boards and also, fully assembled. It wasn't
Mhm.
bad, just okay. So yeah,
Yeah,
still it's economic. So, and
Mhm.
really thank you. And it's just like I never had like a pet because I didn't have like so much space. But right now, just like I'm seeing, myself, just like getting one. The form factor is great.
Mhm. Yeah. I don't know if anyone else here happens to have more updated information on the tariff situation. Like I haven't actually gone through the process of trying to stage an order to see what it would be. I've been just deterred by what other people have said.
Great. I don't see any more questions, but again, if there are any, we can just post them in the chat. Many thanks again, Daniel.
Mhm.
Stopping the
Thank you.